Well, hello there, and welcome to Ffilm Craic, the show where myself, Nicholas O'Sheacon, and him, Clive, Tay and Biscuits, chat about films and cracks. Yes. I think the original idea of this show was that we were going to only talk about films that were, impossible to find on DVD, and but slowly, I think we're about 1 out of every 4 now that are actually.
Well, that's my fault this time, and I am gonna make a conceited effort to avoid that. But then again, if it's organically goes that way, I think that's okay. It's not as if we're talking, the
new Transformers
Star Wars or
Okay. Although hilariously enough, you probably could, because you can't actually get any of the original cuts of Star Wars and stuff like that anymore without going to the black market, because George Lucas is.
I don't think this needs to be said, Nick, but I want to set down the law here. We are never talking about those films on.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
You can go and talk to some other fucker about them, but you're not getting me.
That's fine. That's all right. So.
Right.
What we are talking about today is a couple of films. And the reason we're talking about the first one of them, which is Enemy Territory,
which is because fit our remit.
Oh, absolutely. It's not available at the moment on DVD or Laserdisc. It was available on VHS.
Yes, yeah. In fact, I think I used to own a Japanese VHS, maybe.
Nice. Yeah, so the only reason I even know this film exists is because we watched another film for another episode of this show not that long ago called Tony.
Yes.
Which is a very black comedy. I don't know. Would you agree?
Yeah,
I guess.
That's about right, I think. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Which features a socially inept main character whose main hobby seems to be watching VHS tapes of kind of crappy, possibly slightly reactionary 80s action films. And some kung fu and karate as well, I guess, right?
Which is better, kung fu or karate?
Yeah, which is
the eternal question
that you should ask every Asian man you meet on the street.
That's right.
You be sure.
See earlier show for details, just in case you just think me and Nick are being racist for no good reason.
Yes. So in Tony, he very specifically mentions this movie by title, and I was like, I don't know this movie. And I feel like if Tony's talking about it, I should know this movie.
He's a man who should listen to that, though.
Yes, yeah. He's one of the only ones he really specifically waxes rhapsodic at length. He gives us a little bit of a plot synopsis of the film.
Right.
So yes, I asked Clive, and Clive said he had seen it a long time ago. And so then Clive, you maybe can explain why you've paired it up with it'll become very obvious why you have in a moment, but
so I wrote about it in my book, and in the review of Enemy Territory in the book Spine Grinder, it mentions that it's kind of like a somewhat lighter version of the film Tenement, which will be the second half of a double bill. But then actually watching these, because I've been going back and rewriting some of my the most shocking film for me when I went back to read my review of Enemy Territory, amazingly, embarrassingly, which is why I want to go back and rewrite parts of that book, which I am doing slowly, is I didn't identify Ray Parker Jr.
Okay, yeah, that's
fairly astonishing to me.
That seems important.
Kind of how that got past me, I have no idea. But anyway. Yes, but I would like to read, because now in retrospect, there is, of course, shared, DNA. But then again, there were lots of films, and I'm thinking now that Tenement might be more of a low-budget version of Death Wish 3 than it is connected to Enemy Territory. And also, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a really rather good Canadian film from, I think, 85 as well, called Siege, aka Striking Back, I think it's known as, directed by Paul Donovan.
I know the title, but I don't know that I've seen it.
That's a great, kind of you know, either I can't remember if it's I think it might be a tenement as opposed to because it's a high rise in enemy track. That's the thing between the two that I don't know if anyone else thinks that. For me, that makes a difference. One
Yes,
high rise was, for some reason I was remembering tenement as being in a bigger building than it.
Okay.
So now I've gone back to rewrite that. So the connection between these two is actually totally gone.
And
plus, Tenement is on Blu-ray and is available, or at least it was on a boutique
surprisingly
for a while.
Pristine-looking print.
Yes,
if anything, it maybe takes away from the movie. I felt like this is a movie I need to be seeing on a grainy.
Had you seen Tenement before, by the way?
No.
Okay,
they were both brand new to me.
Okay. So anyway, Tenement doesn't really belong here, but we watched it anyway, so fuck it, we're going to talk about it.
Sure. Yeah. And there's plenty of shared DNA.
Yeah. So I'm just being pinick.
But Tenement, I think, was first, because isn't Tenement 85? And
yes, Tenement is an older film.
Yeah. Enemy Territory is is 87. But yeah, I think we should talk about it first, just because it is.
Well, it's the only one that actually fits the remit of the show. So yeah.
Exactly. So Ray Parker Jr. Better known, I assume, or maybe only known for having penned the theme to Ghostbusters, which is interesting that they steadfastly refused to, despite the fact that they've made his character a telephone repairman, ever have him say, "Who you gonna call?"
I ain't afraid of vampires.
Yeah. So that was, kudos really maybe for not doing that.
And who knows, maybe there's one person out there who has such a lopsided, bizarre view of the world that when they hear the Ghostbusters theme tune, they go do it the other way around. This is sung by a guy you might more well known as the co-star of maybe Tony, right?
Yes, exactly. So, the other thing that jumped out at me when I read about the movie was that it has Tony Todd, right? Who plays the leader of the gang in the apartment building.
Very unfortunate name in the north of England as well. That right? Isn't Todd isn't that a turd?
Is it? Okay.
So I think you go and have your morning Todd. So something I've learned from Paul Zimmer's Athletico Mints podcast is Todd.
All right.
Yeah.
So a hot toddy sounds like something that you really wouldn't want.
Well, not a toddy, and that's totty, isn't it? With a silent.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's
totty.
But then totty is also a bit of toddy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I shouldn't have gone down this route.
No, this is a weird back alley we've stumbled into. So this is a Charles Band Empire, whatever.
But I don't think it's a production, all right. I think Empire released it, and Charles Band is an executive producer on it.
Okay. And
the director Peter Manoogian did direct for Charles Band because he made the classic demonic toys.
Oh, right? Okay.
And, you remember Eliminators, which was kind of like a post-apoc Terminator-y thing.
Mm-hmm.
He made that. So I think they were Empire, but I don't think this was I think this was an independent production where the producers are Tim Kincaid and Cynthia DePaula, who made a whole bunch of very strange shot in New York exploitation movies about this. In fact, this must be one of their bigger budgeted films, I think. Mm-hmm. They made things like Mutant Hunt, Breeders. I don't know. Breeders. You've seen Breeders, right?
Yeah, maybe. Remind me.
Well, you remember it. It's the scene at the end is women bathing in insect semen.
No, and it seems like the kind of thing.
Yeah, you would remember.
That I would remember if I'd seen it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This one does have an MGM logo on it. The version of the film that you found for us.
I think it came from the MGM channel, right? And I think
that's great.
I think this is the best. I think this is the best print you can get. There's also VHS, and it's still SD, but it's slightly better than some of the other. You can find it in the usual places, kids. Yeah, let's just say that much.
So, I mean, basically, our story is that, it begins, first of all, it does begin with a bunch of graffiti and a funk rap theme with an awful lot of cheesy synth in it.
Like Boogie Boys.
Yeah.
They do the opening theme and the end theme.
Yeah. It's
and the end theme kind of, I don't think it has actually a sample, but it's the Halloween theme tune, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I say at the end, it's like, this sounds very John Carpenter-y,
right,
with a funk synth rap.
And the graffiti becomes the title, which I always like, because
yes.
you don't get anymore.
No.
Nice neon graffiti title.
We get some kids walking along, kind of wildly overacting on a little walk and talk. Just, I don't know. There's lots of like big hand gestures as they're arguing with each other, and then we get to our main character, right? Who, if you kind of squint, looks a bit like Anthony Michael Hall. And in fact, later on in the movie, when and I mean younger Anthony Michael Hall, not the big beefy, one from later on.
Beefy now, is he?
As far back as like Edward Scissorhands, he was a big jock-looking guy with a big neck.
Yes. I haven't thought about Edward Scissorhands in a long time. I forgot Anthony Michael Hall was in it. Yeah.
But he's looked like that ever since. Like, he's been in TV shows and stuff, and he's still always. You would never even see him as being.
Wasn't he in that Dead Zone TV series? Was that Anthony
yes.
Michael Hall?
Yes.
Oh, I don't seem to remember him being big and beefy in that, but Anthony Michael Hall, I imagine. Yeah. Breakfast Club, Anthony Michael Hall, right?
Yes, yeah. But anyway,
Naxi Zoom Dweeby.
Yes. And yeah, basically he's an insurance salesman, right?
Yes.
And his boss decides to send him off. He's clearly struggling. He's recently divorced and getting estranged from his kid. Possibly he has a drinking problem. A lot of backstory that doesn't actually go anywhere.
No,
like just setting him up as a slightly flawed character, I guess. And he goes into his boss's office, and his boss tells him, "You've got to get out to this sketchy apartment building out in a sketchy part of
Lincoln Towers,
New York."
Right?
Lincoln Towers, yep.
It's funny, they set him up to be more of a. I expected him to be more of an asshole than he is.
Yes,
but he's not really. I mean, when he first comes up with the bright, he's a bit kind of condescending.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, in a way, he's kind of like. So when he eventually doesn't have the project, he's like he doesn't. In a way, it does him a service that he doesn't do the simpering kind of white man out of his depth things. Like he tries to throw his weight around a little bit, which I would imagine in that situation is actually probably preferable to just turning up and just looking like a target. Like the fact that he talks back a little bit to some of the kids as if we're meant to look after. I think that's probably. I mean, it might not work in the long run, but that's probably.
But it didn't for him.
No, but it's probably better than just turning up and handing out cash everywhere, and which he ends up doing
as well.
But he doesn't come across as clearly he's
not. He doesn't seem like a pushover at the beginning for sure.
Yeah, but he's not a full on. I didn't think of him as a full on dick. I just think he was representative of white privilege, and that was it, right?
No, agreed. And so basically, he said that he's got to get this old lady to sign off on an insurance thing. He'll get this big
commission
if he does, and some of that will go.
Frances Foster is this little old lady in the projects who he needs to get her signature on her life insurance policy before, because it's late on Friday night as well. It's important that he's going into these projects at night. And Ray Parker Jr. is also there. Basically, it's a booty call for him, right? He's his lady friend.
He's not a bad actor at all.
He's all right.
I have to say.
Yeah. He ain't afraid of no script.
I guess not. No, I was not expecting. I thought he would be much more stilted than he actually was. So, hats off to Ray Parker. And again, if you kind of squinted, he looked a bit like Billy D. Williams, young Billy. So
a little bit
Michael Hall and Billy D. Williams kind of running around this apartment building.
He ain't afraid of no perm.
Yes, and doing this comes a year before Die Hard, and there's I just immediately assumed it came out after because of the whole no shoes part. Because at the beginning of it, not that they do anything with it really, but Ray Parker Jr. doesn't have a pair of shoes. He's running around barefoot in the building for the first chunk.
Also, in the same year as Enemy Territory, his other screen credit is he was in, and here's a blast from the past, here's a film I probably haven't thought about for a long time, Disorderlies, starring the Fat Boys.
Fat Boys. Okay. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
I think I probably saw at some point.
I might have, yeah.
He ain't fighting no fat guys. Sorry,
we're just gonna run that into the ground. So basically, yeah, he shows up. The kids kind of the neighborhood kids extort him into you know, we never come back to what happened to his car. Actually, it's an unresolved plot point, but he leaves his car out front.
Maybe it's
it could be.
Yeah,
and then he goes into the building where he gets in an altercation with what looks like a 12-year-old. 13 maybe, you know, a kid. This anyway
is, this is Dean Richmond, who I believe was on the Cosby Show.
Really?
For a while. Yeah, I didn't know.
Okay.
I'm not really, I saw Cosby Show intermittently when I was a kid, but I'm not fully versed in Cosby law.
But apparently Gary Frank, the lead actor, I guess, or one of the two leads, the white lead actor, he was an Emmy-winning like TV dude from like before this. Like he was like the son on some kind of like so he was a bit of a I'd never seen him before, and I was like, I don't know who that guy is.
He seems alright as well. He's pretty good. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's got a little kind of a Dennis Miller meets Dennis Leary kind of like. He's got a slightly kind of like sarcastic New York sound, but not a total dick, but. You know, and yeah, so they go to the village, gets into this altercation. This kid is not happy and identifies himself as a member of the gang that runs the whole building.
The vampires.
The vampires, yes. And then
led by Tony the Todd.
Yes, yes. Who is, well, we'll get to him when he shows up.
He's good. He's good. He's good.
He's great.
Gives his all.
He's Tony Todd.
Yeah. No, it's nice. I'd forgotten that Tony Todd was in it actually, and great. He gives his monies.
He elevates from anything he's in, and then he also, you know, I think I would kind of only assume that he gets the job in Candyman in part based on this, because it's only a couple years later.
Yeah,
you know,
because then again, he had. I suppose if you're talking high-profile movies. He had actually already been in Platoon.
Okay.
But I can't remember how big his role. I haven't seen Platoon in a very long time. I can't remember how big his role was. But a lot of young actors were in Platoon, right?
Yeah, the guy who played Bunny was in The Doors, playing like one of the Doors. But that makes sense because it's Oliver Stone. But anyway, and, you know, I did think they set up the right away the claustrophobia of the space was done well. Like there's that scene where he walks down this hallway. The security guard, the building's one security guard, is an elderly black gentleman, brings him up to the floor where he's got to go to, you know, visit the client. And there's just this like endless, narrow like hallway that goes on and on. It's like, oh Jesus, that looks like a crappy place to live. Yeah. Anyway, and then
so basically there's this altercation, and then it kind of gets out of hand, and basically the Cosby kid gets shot right
in the eye.
Yeah, gets shot there.
Yes.
So now it's on. Now it's intruders. First of all, just Gary Frank, and then Ray Parker Jr.
quickly afterwards, runs out to see what's going on. There was a line there I quite liked, which was actually the old security guard. He pretty much almost his last line in the movie. Sorry, what was that?
I just meant because he ain't afraid of.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yes, he said yes, absolutely.
So he joins in and helps.
Yes. Yeah. But no, there's a great line that the security guard has, and maybe his last line in the movie, which is where he yells at because Tony Todd comes up in the elevator to basically say like, hey, this ghost honky white man has like besmirched the honor of our, you know, of our gang and this kid, and he's like, I don't give a pig's dick for your honor.
There we go.
Like,
yes,
that's a solid line.
Yes.
And then he dies almost immediately afterwards.
I believe it's from Hamlet.
I think so, yes.
So, and then yes, he also has a very warriors like speech scene as well, doesn't he, in the basement when he's rallying the troops.
Yes.
And I suppose that's the film in the back of both of all these kind of urban gang action films is the warriors, right? That's the granddad of these things, right?
In fact, my favorite line in the entire movie is in that part, because they cut down to the basement or whatever, and they have this like the kid laid out and some candles, and it's all very weird. And then we get into this whole idea of like, oh, they take the vampires thing quite seriously.
Well, so this is the interesting thing about the film, is that this gang is called the Vampires, and so there's one scene where one of the gang members seems to transform, or I don't know, maybe he's crazed on angel dust or something, which is something that happens in 10. But it's alluded to that they are actually vampires.
There's actually a supernatural element,
but never actually fully fleshed out. I think that's what's kind of interesting about this movie, is they never come out and say that they are vampires, but they're called vampires. And there's that scene which is, you are wondering what's wrong with, why is he suddenly a monster? So
oh, you're right. Yeah, Psycho, like quite near the end. Yeah. We suddenly back from the dead.
I like how they play with that they never fully go for it. So it's not really it's more of an urban action film than it is a horror film. But it does have, it's in there, right? It's in there a little bit. I find that kind of an interesting choice, like why they didn't just go fully make it vampires in a tower block film. And I find it interesting that they went that route of making it just maybe semi supernatural. It's kind of an interesting choice.
Yeah, and certainly they don't really start like, I mean Tony Todd's character can't really be defeated until he's outside in sunlight. There is this element, like, you know, it is dawn when they do finally kill him.
Yeah.
But no, he has this. Tony Todd has this great line there, where he's like, "This is our castle. Nobody rubs an ass dirty finger on the walls of our castle."
Yeah.
Ew. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, fair play. If someone comes around here and tries to bring their ass dirty finger on my building, I'm in their face. I ain't afraid of no ass dirty finger.
So anyway, basically the rest of the movie is really just a kind of
then right, including let's not forget the very lovely Stacey Dash,
right, from Clueless, right?
Yeah, from both the Clueless film and the TV series,
right?
No, great to see her. Eye candy. She's
definitely cute. You know, I was struck by there's a scene where they quite early on, they have to escape. They hide out in the lady who they were signing off, the
Frances Foster.
Yeah. Is she like younger than her character's supposed to be? Because she seems a little bit like
they
grandma.
Like a silver wig on her or something. Right? Yeah.
But you know, they climb out of her window on like a bed sheet basically, and it seems like some stunt men seem to have done that, because like when the camera pulls quite far back, you're like, that doesn't look safe.
Worth mentioning as well, shot by Ernest Dickerson, who later went on to direct that Tales from the Crypt Demon Night and Juice and cinematographer of a great. He also directed some episodes of The Wire. I remember seeing his name on The Wire.
Okay, well, this would be good training for that, I guess.
Right. No, he does a good job of shooting. Good location shooting. And again, it's not show off or anything, but I think that it's sometimes difficult. It's easy to forget that it's difficult to, you know, because a lot of this is in the dark as well, right? A lot of it is, and it's in the cramped environment. I mean, it doesn't look, I mean, maybe some of it, but it doesn't really look like a studio. It looks like they
No.
are shooting in
Location
proper
for sure.
locations, right? Which is, that's not necessarily easy to do. You have to have a good camera person, you have to have good lighting people, and you have to have your shit together, right? So I think it's and I think Ernest Dickerson is considered, one of the great modern cinematographers, especially of urban environments and location work as well.
Mm-hmm. And then of course there is Jan Michael Vincent. Ah
yes, how could we overlook Jan Michael Vincent, propped up in his modified wheelchair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This gives me an opportunity to talk about Lone Wolf and Cub, but I'm gonna not do that.
Okay, go on. You know you want to.
No, obviously just
throw some Thomas Millian in.
No, I'm saving that for Tenement.
Okay.
But yeah, no, he has a wheelchair that has like little missiles and stuff that trick gadgety James Bondy stuff going on. So
he also has a cat.
Yes.
And a bird in a cage. Just think.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does, and he has a great and very weird line about the cat, where he says, "I got to shoot a cat every now and again because of the bugs they put in them, like AIDS and pink eye."
Yeah, poor cat. Which he frightens out of his basket by shooting a gun
off the wall with a machine gun. Yes. He plays a psychopathic Vietnam vet, end of the world kind of.
He's a survivalist and a racist.
He calls.
He refers to the gang as Zulus and Mau Maus. And isn't really in it that long, really.
No.
I suppose they got him for as long as he was awake, right? Like before he fell into.
Is it really true that that's why he's in the wheelchair? Is because
that's what I remember reading at a certain point, and it's certainly believable. I mean, I know they had to prop, even back in the days of Airwolf, they had to like prop him up in his chair. And he would just slowly slouch towards the edge of the frame the longer take. I mean, he was properly a fascinating story. If anyone ever, I don't know if anyone's ever ghost written a autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing is, he probably doesn't remember anything.
Right, the Jan. I'm not sure the Jan Michael Vincent story. But
I've always been a big fan. Something about even before you hear about there's something about I always quite liked. There's something about I think because I was a kid, I was a big fan of that movie Hooper. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, yeah.
And Burt Reynolds, because it's a stuntman film, right? So it's all stunts all the time, right? So I love that film. Big fan of Hooper. Another film that hasn't dated very well, because I remember there's scenes. I remember watching Hooper not that long ago, and there's scenes in Hooper of Hooper and his friends, driving to a bar, getting utterly shit-faced, and then racing each other down the highway. And they are the heroes of the film, the totally shit-faced drug drivers. I think that's a very different time, right? The 70s. So
I mean, what else there is to say except that basically it's kind of a cat and mouse kind of a thing. I mean, it's funny, it and then it more than the next one, but it reminded me of like the Judge Dredd movie that was made.
The movie, yes,
which is like just Dredd, right?
Which was good.
3D
which was good.
It's a great film, but it has that kind of the same momentum of them being like they're trying to corral them and like get like coming from the top down and the bottom up to try to isolate them onto a floor where they can kill them.
The Raid, right? The Indonesian.
Yes. And it's a great premise, really.
It's always a good idea. I like that Dredd movie as well, and I like the Raid. It's anything like that that's like a bulletproof, like if you don't fuck it, because the whole idea, the Game of Death was the same kind of concept.
Yes.
But you fight each level of the pagoda and you get higher. Unfortunately, that was terrible. Well, because he's dead. But also, whatever. Yeah, the Game of Death is just that's not that should be a fun watch, but it's not. It's just really depressing. And anyway. I rather enjoyed this again. I mean, it's not a film necessarily you go back to again and again and again, but it's a solid little
Oh yeah.
It's
No,
fun.
I thought it was lots of fun. Tony Todd was great.
Yeah.
You know, and he's an actor who
Stacey
too like.
Dash was worth ogling at in
Yep.
younger days. Yeah, Michael Vincent bringing the spice. Ray Parker Jr. I mean, yeah,
Yep.
it doesn't let the side down.
No. Yeah, no, it was lots of fun.
All right, yeah.
I think I mean it's just funny. I think Tony Todd is an actor who is underappreciated.
Yes.
And I think it's probably because most of his work has been done in this kind of stuff. But like, for example, and I know you're not a big science fiction person and a big Star Trek person.
Keep saying I'm not a big science fiction person. I am a big science fiction person.
Okay.
I'm just not a big shit science fiction person.
Okay, fine. But he
I ain't afraid of no science fiction.
There's a couple of episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine that he's in.
Yeah,
where
but yeah.
Yeah, I know you're not going to. But there's one where he plays an adult version of a character as a kid in the show, and it's a tremendously affecting, like, emotional performance. It's some great acting. But yeah, I feel like he's kind of, because of Candyman and because of other stuff, he's sort of, doesn't get the credit he's due.
Right, he's been pigeonholed into a bit of a genre kind of.
Yeah.
No, he is a good actor. I don't know much about him. I don't know if he has a theatre background or anything like that. But no, yeah, always glad to see Tony Todd. And he is actually the I don't know if you've seen the new Candyman film, but he does turn up in it. They kind of de-aged him to look like he was in the original.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it. And is it? I mean, I like.
It's quite good, actually. I like.
The
I was surprised. I liked the new Candyman film. I kind of like what they did with it.
And the trailer for it was amazing. There was this trailer with the kind of paper cutouts they did.
I didn't see the trailer, but
really effective.
Anyway. The one thing I forgot to say about Enemy Territory before we move on, I quite like the fact that it was straight up and down programmer, like just kind of bare bones action film, but it was spiced with a little bit of the social commentary. I think that you would have to have a story about this honky going in this area. So one I thought was kind of quite well done was, so when Stacey Dash eventually escapes and goes and finds the police, the first thing they do is arrest her. It's like, okay. So I thought that was quite a bold, but a nice little bit of satire there, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't cop out with. It's just they didn't make a big deal out of that stuff. They just kind of seeded nice moments of social commentary throughout, and I appreciated it.
And they never made Barry or kind of our nominal lead, like they never made him like a sudden action hero. You know what I mean? Like he never really like.
No.
Is he suddenly going to like be like
and
mowing
he breaks
down
at one point as well, right? Like he's like
and at the end of the movie, like it really, they do give most of the action to, and I wisely give most of it to Ray Parker Jr. Because then it's less problematic than if it was like white guy goes into a black apartment building with two machine guns and starts. It's not a good look.
Yes, because let's not forget he did well, actually it wasn't him, it was the security guard who accidentally shot the little cousin.
The kid in the face. Yes.
So let's not forget they did shoot the kid in the face. So I'm slightly to understand why the vampires are kind of a little bit annoyed. For sure. Anyway, so but it's, I mean, it's fun. Tenement is slightly grimmer,
different.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going back in time to 1985. Tenement, nice HD print under the title Game of Survival. I think it was also known as Slaughter in the South Bronx.
Yes.
Apt title, I guess.
The infamous Roberta Findlay.
Yeah. So Roberta Findlay, who also shot it, right? She's also the cinematographer on it. And
it is very well shot.
Yeah, well, again, she knows how to do stuff on location. And Roberta Findlay, a fascinating figure again. I guess I wouldn't call her the first lady of American exploitation, because of course that is the goddess Doris Wishman. And as much as I enjoy Roberta Findlay and I appreciate, she's not Doris Wishman. No one is, and that's not just female filmmakers. That's any filmmakers. No one else is Doris Wishman.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Have we done any Roberta Findlay on any of the other shows? Have you ever done it on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So Roberta Findlay, I guess, for those who don't know, kind of started off making movies with her husband, right?
Michael, right?
Michael Findlay, who passed, and then after he died, she just carried on making movies without him, and took, I think in the earlier movies he was pretty much the director. She was like a co-writer and a star in his films and stuff, and obviously helped him make them. I'm sure she was shooting and editing and all sorts of uncredited things. And then he passed away, and then she just carried on, picked up the mantle, and she made exploitation films like this. She made a lot of porno films.
Yeah.
So just to put this into context, the very same year Tenement was released, also saw the release of The Oracle, which was like her Ouija board horror film thing that I guess the film Witchboard must have copied.
Okay.
And also the monumentally tasteless porno documentary film Shauna, Every Man's Fantasy, about Shauna Grant, the porn star who killed herself. Have you ever seen Shauna, Every Man's Fantasy? Oh, no. Man. Yeah, if you feel like getting like really sleazy and feeling bad and you have to take a shower and scrub your brain after a film, I recommend Shauna, Every Man's. It was considered, I think when it came out, it was considered like it was like a real the adult industry was like just ashamed. It was like, one of our own has taken her own life, and this is how you're going to honor him. And it's pretty amazing that film exists.
It's I mean, obviously, she's famous for being involved in snuff as well, right? That not the thing that doesn't actually exist.
Yes.
But the movie. Yes.
When they were making it down in Argentina, I think it was called Slaughter, right? Yeah, so that was the one she made with Michael, and so actually that's terrible. But some of the other exploitation films they made together, the Her Flesh trilogy, Taste of Her Flesh, Kiss of Her Flesh, and Curse of Her Flesh. Oh yes, classic.
What's interesting is I was just reading an interview with her just recently as I was going through stuff to get ready for this, and she doesn't do many. She doesn't give many interviews, and she doesn't. She's very much not happy that the internet has made it possible to reach out and touch people and get in touch, because her fan base is people she wants nothing to do with. Like she's completely like, I don't want to talk to these people. They're all something very wrong with them.
It's fascinating that she does the commentary for Tenement, and she kind of explains how it was in some ways going back to her childhood in the Bronx, and she came from a Jewish background, right? And she talks a little bit about the Jewish communities in these ares and how they.
Well, I mean, that's definitely featured. There is the Jewish grandma kind of character in the story. He was quite a sympathetic character although she keeps having to get rescued.
Right. The other credit item, also written by Joel Bender and Rick Marks. Rick Marks co-wrote the screenplay for Outlaw of Gore.
Oh yes. I read that too. I was like, yes, that's the one that has Jack Palance in it, I think.
I can't remember which is which. And Joel Bender directed a few films, including a very strange movie called The Immortalizer, which I would recommend as another really a weird ass 80s kind of fucked up little. What is this now exactly? But hell of a good time.
Okay, The Immortalizer.
I think it's got something to do with jocks injected with drugs, and they become mutants that kidnap some cheerleaders or something like that. It's a very strange film.
Okay, that sounds great.
Back in the day, because I think Michael Weldon gave it a very favorable review in his
Electronic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I have to seek it out there, and I found it on Japanese VHS at some point. But anyway, so those are some interesting credits. Again, starts with a a nice
better rap song.
Yes,
I quite like. This is a very Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 sounding rap song by a guy at the Cool Crew, I think they're called.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, this is very much that. You can actually, while watching this film, I kept hearing, rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with the baseball bat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very much that era of cesspool. It's actually amazing, and it's a shame you don't get much of it here. You get a little bit. There's an establishing shot early on when the police turn up, and you see this tenement building just sitting just like in a sea of rubble, and it's amazing now to think that that is what the Bronx looked like. I think the best, if you want to watch, because I think we forget sometimes that younger people kind of can't quite believe that this is the reality, right? But Wild Style, that movie is a treasure trove of, like, where was this? New York. This was shot like in
Beirut.
Apocalyptic. Yeah, it's just like no way is this New York. It's incredible. Wild Style is a great time capsule of that. I mean, there's a whole bunch of 80s movies where with individual scenes, and like we said, there's that one scene at the beginning of this. But if you want to concentrate it in one go, I think Wild Style is probably the one to go for. Great fun that film is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's been ages.
Yeah, so you've not seen Wild Style?
No, it's been ages. It's been I haven't seen it since I was a kid, like in Ireland.
You mentioned Grandmaster Flash. He's in it as well, right? They show him cutting up in the kitchen. He has his deck set up in his kitchen, which is also super cool.
Ice-T isn't not in that, but he's in one of those very early.
Oh, he's in either Break In or Break Into Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, maybe
both.
Yeah,
he's got a totally different
vibe.
Yeah, he's very he's not a hard ass pimp. Is he? He's like
it's like seeing the very first photographs of Slayer, if you've ever seen those, when they're fully in like big hair and like pink tights and stuff, when they weren't quite a
Ice-T in Break-In looks like he should be, at your school disco, basically, as opposed to
background dancer for Michael Jackson or something.
Right.
But so I mean, maybe you can give us a little bit of a plot synopsis on what happens here.
Oh yeah, well, there's a gang who hang out in the tenement at this basement.
They have some quite wild fashion sense, by the way. Like that gang is like, what the hell are they?
Well, it's funny.
Or hip hop people, or
there's a Roberta Findlay commentary for this film, which is entertaining in bits and pieces, and she's quite good. She explains she says no gangs actually looked like that in that area. We just took different bits from different gang and just put them all in one gang. And the other thing she points out as well was it would probably have been very unusual to have such a mixed race gang, because you would have had Hispanic and black and white.
They're very rainbow coalition.
They're the future of gangs.
Progressive.
So they're led by this guy called Choco, right? Who's
yes,
a Hispanic
who is
dude.
basically Chachi Monteblanc. Like every time he spoke,
on steroids.
I could, but like every time he spoke, I could just hear like the wrath of Khan, like just I don't know, something about his look,
like a really young
bare chest.
He looks like as well one of the members of the cast of Mixed Blood, right? Paul Morrissey film.
Yes, totally.
Which gets it more authentic, right? Because that's a film about all Hispanic gangs versus.
And it's funny, Paul Morrison came to my mind because there's a part in the movie where they're outside filming on the street, and this background noise is like almost wiping out the dialogue, and like brought me right back to the Gigolos, 40 Dukes,
So, but the only really recognizable, I mean, some people might recognize the girl in the gang, Karen Russell, right? who apparently, I was looking her up as well, much later on, she's one of the dancers apparently in the Chris Cunningham music video for Aphex Twins Window Licker.
Oh,
Video,
okay.
apparently. But yeah, she was one of those, I mean, she was one of those actresses that, yeah, if you were a hardcore straight-to-video devotee back in the 80s, she'd have got him out for you in a series of films. And
in this case, mostly getting blood smeared on them.
Yeah, and the other one, the guy who the only cast member who you will recognize and who was very good in this, and according to Roberta Findlay in her commentary, was actually quite scary in real life. Apparently, the other cast members were quite scared of him. He's very authentic. Is Paul Calderon? So he's the one face you would have been like, hang on, the black guy.
Yes.
The guy who's covered in blood, the guy who kills the dog.
Yeah, with
scary
Asian sort of, and he's wearing kind of Asian headband thing.
Yes. So Paul Calderon's, not famous people would, but you've seen him in countless things at this point. I'm sure his face jumped out at you, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, according to Roberta Findlay, he was and this might be his first film as well. Apparently, he was pretty intimidating. He was
going method,
or I don't know. Maybe he was going around trying to get crew members to eat a rat on a stick, or
right.
So
the whole opening scene is quite over the top with the shooting the rat and then sticking it onto the stick, and then that poor girl seems to like she's a member of the gang, but she seems to be the butt of a lot of
she's the biker mama, right? She's the town bicycle, as I believe they say, as well. I'm guessing.
Right.
But so the is he the super of the
Rojas or whatever his name is?
Yes.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's a piece of work.
He's horrible, isn't he? He's just sort of, he's I'm not sure the accent. Is he Puerto Rican or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a Spanish, whatever it is. It's from a place where Spanish is the first language.
Right, and he's just he calls the cops out to get rid of this gang, and then immediately he's just a horrible character. Like everything about him, he's just
Weasley, cowardly,
the whole time. Yeah.
Yes.
And racist and just he's just horrible. He's fantastic. He's one of my favorite characters. He's like consistently horrible all the way through, isn't he?
But there's a point about like 3/4 of the way, and when you do realize, oh, hang on, this has just become Night of the Living Dead, and it's the part where they're kind of all bickering with each other, and he's being particularly obnoxious, and our kind of heroic Jolene, who is kind of the big. We never really get into his backstory. We see that he had an Asian wife and kid, and I don't know if it's been intimated that it's yet another Vietnam vet, because they seem to show up a lot in these kind of movies.
A thing of this era, right? Like
but it's never
in enemy territory. It turns out that Ray Parker Jr.'s character was a Nam vet as well.
As well as John Michael Vincent. So I wondered if they were just, but they never explicitly said it. But anyway, when he's kind of like they're putting up all of the like things to block off the doors and everyone's bickering, and I was like, oh yeah, we've fully now. It's just Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. And again, to my point, this as well as being the low budget version of Death Wish 3, which is another really fun, trashy that era where because it's interesting as well. You think about at this,
but that's canon. That's canon.
Yeah, well, if you'd have gone to 42nd Street, it's interesting where you would have potentially seen Death Wish 3 and Tenement on a double bill, but they would have had that similar. One would have been a big budget major, the other one's an independent production, but they share this trashiness, right? Which is
grotty.
That gulf has got bigger and bigger and bigger over the years, right? Like some of those Charles Bronson vehicles of that era were like just a hair's breadth away from a proper exploitation film. So that's kind of but Siege, the Canadian movie I mentioned, Siege. He's in the first one or the second one?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So Siege, that Canadian movie, these scenes really reminded me of. You should definitely see Siege.
Okay.
It's a great. It's
I mean, there
better
is
than Tenement. Actually, it's overall a really solid film, I think. Yeah.
Because there's Assault on Precinct 13 as
Assault
well.
on Precinct 13, I guess,
No.
in the back of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, yeah, Night of the Living Dead via Assault on Precinct 13. Yeah. So yeah, so the super manages to get the gang arrested. The cops
Immediately released.
Yeah, we don't really see why. We're not privy to the machinations of exactly what happened. But yeah, they're back on the streets. Straight.
Well, one of the gang members immediately comes out and says, like, you know, the cops got lost to protect like us, basically.
Right. So then
that's all the explanation we get.
So then during Angel Dust High, Choco kind of has it seems to have a real moment.
Great scene.
Yeah, that is a good scene. And then he's like, okay, fuck it, we're gonna go back there. And basically they go back to the tenement to get revenge for being shot to the cops, right? And
yes, yeah.
And yeah, they kill a few people, and then yeah, eventually the residents figure out that they've got to fight back and electrocute people and drop fridges on them and all that stuff. And oh yeah, there is a very nasty rape scene involving a broomstick. Yep.
And a little daughter who walks in on the aftermath, which is, you know, just to raise the level of like
it's a proper full-blooded exploitation film, right? Which I always appreciate. I always like when they, like, if you're gonna do this kind of thing, I mean, just fucking do it properly. I appreciate that level of
the balls to the wall.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. This is supposed to be for adults. Let's just do it.
Well, that was where I got into that. Like, it was like there's like Last Tenement on the left. There's that too.
right.
And when it gets that grisly and that loopily intestiny, like, you know, there's one of the scenes I liked the most was quite near the end, where like there was one of the gang members that never really seemed to fit, like hipster hat guy, who does then at quite near the end of the movie decide to bail on the whole thing and gets like ruthlessly stabbed in the nuts by Choco.
Right. Apparently some of the gang members, not him maybe, but some of them were crew members as well, just filling.
Okay, he looks like he might have been a film student.
Yeah, and so that's kind of it really. It's pretty much, there's one quite hilarious scene. I thought it was quite funny, the woman who tries to climb out the window on a bed sheet, and because it's one of those inevitable, you know, it's gonna go badly. It's not a surprise. It's just a matter of when's it gonna happen, and you just say, no, that's not. See, I fucking told you. But it's quite amusing. It's very bad comedy, but it's quite funny, and a good stuff again looks like the same as the editor. Yeah.
And for such a trashy movie, like the performances are all surprisingly credible.
Yeah, they're all right. I mean, they don't.
A lot of the acting is fine.
They don't bring the side down, right?
No, but it's not like it's not. You know, I've seen some stilted, some bad acting in this kind of movie.
Right.
But everyone does their job pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's enough that you can believe. I mean, it's that weird mix, isn't it, of delivering, because this is the thing which is amazing. I learned doing shitty Saigen dramas here in Japan was, clearly some people have a kind of natural thing and some people don't as well. And not to say that I'm necessarily good or other people like this are good, but some people can just overact in front of a camera. Like if they want to overact in front of a camera, I get. What I didn't realize, because that's like, to act well is a different matter, but to just go, oh my god, you get that for free, you lucky viewers. Because I can do that and it's easy, you think everyone can do that, but you forget some people can't even do that. Like they totally freeze in front of a camera, which is amazing to me. Like they could be incredibly animated before the camera is turned on and they're just being the natural selves. As soon as the camera's on them, they just lock up. And so it's a mixture of people who can at least do that. I mean, better than that. I'm not, they're proper actors, but also they're not like, they seem real as well, right?
Yes. There's a naturalism.
Yeah,
to also the acting.
It hasn't been polluted too much by whatever training or method. Now, of course, turns out we're both talking total bullshit, and they're all actually going to be, trained actors from the New York theater or something, and they're going to write in and complain. But we'll just drop a fridge on them.
There's some, I mean, as it kind of escalates, some of the stuff near the end, like when all the little kids have the boiling things of water, they just like dump on them.
Yeah,
that was like wow. The Jewish granny, she really goes off near the end of the movie too, like kicking some ass. Like it's got a nice payoff, and then the whole final rooftop battle in the rain, like lightning storm, which is very Shakespearean.
I mean, it's a good old, again with Enemy Territory. I think you might have enjoyed these two films a little bit more than I did, just because I'd seen them before, and they're not necessarily films that stand up to rewatches again and again, but one and done, kind of have fun with them. They both work in that capacity, I think, right? Tenement obviously being stronger meat than
definitely the grubbier.
Enemy Territory in comparison is a lot more light-hearted, something you could show almost out. Whereas Tenement has a few scenes here and there which would have
are squirm worthy for sure.
But that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yes, I guess it's a little more edge for sure. Although, what's funny, the most off-color part of any of the two films, I feel, is that scene where Ray Parker Jr. and the other guy swing in the window of the two little girls' bedroom in Enemy Territory. And I don't even know if I need to explain anymore, but what happens there and how that's played for laughs. And that whole thing was just like, I was like,
well, it's just the fact that there are two really small little girls, and the first line out of their mouth is, "You're not gonna rape us."
It's like, it's a very weird scene, because it almost makes more sense in Tenement, anyway, just
but
the 80s were a different time.
Yes, but both a couple of fun little watches. I think one maybe for late night viewing, the other one for your children's party or mitzvah.
Now, do we think that Tony had both of them? Were they both on his shelf, or was Tony more?
Well, Tenement would have been illegal because I don't think it was
X-rated.
Yeah, well, it was
unrated.
I think it was denied a video certificate in the UK until it was released in the 2000s or something. So and Tony doesn't have DVDs.
No. You're right.
And I didn't get the feeling that Tony was had a bootleg video DVD.
Yeah, we would know enough to find where grey market tapes were. Yeah, you're right.
Hopefully, maybe in Tony 2, after he's found money on a corpse to upgrade to a DVD player, maybe he has now seen Tenement, and in Tony 2 he can explain. Yeah, maybe he can walk up to instead of an Asian character, he walk up to a black man on the street and say, "What do you think's more dangerous, a tenement or a high rise?"
Nice.
Yes. Anyway, I think we shall conclude that, shall we, Nick? Is that all right? Because we ain't afraid of no conclusion.